Art Heists and Hairballs, written by Bailey Booth, performed by Jillian Yetter. Chapter 3. There's a meme comparing the overhead street views of New York and Boston. The streets in New York are neatly organized in a grid. The streets of Boston look like someone dropped a bowl of spaghetti and was forever waiting for someone to pick it up. Add that to a subway strike and tourists walking into traffic on this summer evening, and I'd had to borrow a couple of Persephone's 9 lives to get to Gallery Bellamy. I was late, and being late gave me all the feels from my old brokerage job in Boston, where I always arrived 5 minutes late and totally flustered from traffic. I wasn't able to park near the gallery, and I was going to be sweaty by the time I met Margaret. Looking at my phone and not where I was going, I slammed right into someone when I turned the corner so hard Persephone yelled from inside her carrier. "I am so sorry." Even more mortifying, I'd slammed into a really cute guy. He was about my age, with dark wavy hair and dark-rimmed glasses. He was wearing a button-down shirt and a pair of jeans. If Brooke and Casey were here, they'd definitely be flirting with him. But I turned multiple shades of red. "It's all right. We all have places to go." He gave me a crooked grin and looked down at the carrier in my hand. "Taking your cat out for the night?" "No, I'm bringing her back." That sounded ridiculous. "Is Gallery Bellamy on this street?" His eyes widened. "Is that Persephone? You know this cat?" He crouched down and smiled when he got a good view of the carrier. "Yes, I do. And yeah, the gallery is in the middle of the block. You can't miss it. It's the only house in the middle of the high-rises." "Thank you." I sidestepped him, careful not to hit him in the head with the carrier. One assault was enough for the night. His description was spot on. One brownstone remained between the high-rises, a skinny Victorian holdout from a bygone era. Gallery Bellamy was dark, and the closed sign was on the glass door. I hoped I wasn't too late when I rapped on the wooden door. "Did you know that man?" I looked to either side, making sure no one was close enough to hear me talking to a cat. "Yes, he comes to the gallery often." "What does he smell like?" "Chemicals." My heart was pounding when Margaret appeared from a shadowy hallway. Persephone smelled chemicals on the night of the heist. I might have just come face to face with the thief. What should I tell her? She waved when she saw me, and her face lit up when she spotted the cat carrier in my hand. I liked her already. I'd seen her picture in the news stories, and she was a thin, stylish, older woman with gray hair down to her shoulders, where it flipped out a little, like she was still hanging on to her heyday style. Today she wore a black turtleneck with a statement necklace and wide-legged, patterned pants. Way cooler than I could ever manage to pull off. "You must be Addie. Come in," she said as she opened the door. "And that's my purry pants." Persephone groaned from inside the carrier, but then meowed in response. I thought maybe she'd try to talk, but she was all cat in the presence of her person. I crouched and opened the door to the carrier. Persephone strutted out and stretched. She looked around, and I wished I could ask her what she was looking for. She pushed up against Margaret's legs, and the older woman bent and scooped her up. "I'm so glad you made the time to meet with me." "Of course, you have purry pants." She kissed her cat on the head. "Thank you so much for coming all this way. It will be a lot easier to get through this now that she's home. It's always good when we can reunite a pet with their family." I took a quick scan of the wall, looking for where the infamous painting might have been, but there weren't any holes in the display. She'd either rearranged things to disguise the loss, or the painting was never on display to begin with. "Any leads on the painting yet?" "No, unfortunately. I haven't been as helpful as I should be, I'm afraid. Losing the painting was devastating. No one expects you to find the painting yourself. I wasn't sure what to say about the handsome man that fit the scent of the thief, according to the cat she was snuggling against her chest. I had to go slow with that information. Bellamy was my partner for many years. He considered me his muse. She chuckled sadly and looked into the distance, like she was indulging herself in a memory, then shook her head. It's like losing him all over again. I'm sorry. She leaned in close and whispered, I've never told anyone this before, but I'm the subject of the painting that's missing. I should have never made it available for sale. Who's here? A younger voice called from the hallway. A well-put-together woman, the kind that always made me feel like a kid, even though I was in my 30s, appeared. Her face fell when she saw me standing there with Margaret. Persephone's back, I see. Addie brought her here from a shelter in New Hampshire. Isn't that wonderful? It certainly is. Now if we could have the same good fortune with the painting. The woman stuck her hand out to me. I'm Nicole, Margaret's niece. I've been helping her with the exhibit, and now with the press and the aftermath of the theft. Nice to meet you. I drew my hand away, aware it was probably still sweaty. Do you have any leads on who could have stolen the painting? Nicole drew back. Sorry if that was too forward. I've been reading about the theft since I found Persephone belonged here. We're working closely with the police, but we haven't been able to provide any credible suspects. It seems like my aunt left the door in the back unlocked. She gave her aunt a role-reversing look. Too many people in and out of here. Sully, the handyman, he never sticks to any schedule. He cares way more about his sports teams than he does about art, Margaret interjected. Maybe someone hired him to do it for that reason. He's done everything I've asked him to. There's no reason to suspect him of wrongdoing. Margaret cuddled the cat closer. Nicole turned to me. I always tell her she's too trusting. Lies, Persephone said. She tries to make Margaret feel old. So this was uncomfortable. Whether the door was locked or not, nobody had any business helping themselves to a priceless work of art, I said. Is there any way they could resell the painting on the black market? I've read that it's valued at $250,000. More than that, Nicole waved her hand. I don't know anything about black markets. My business is real estate. That's why we're leaving the investigation to the experts. Achievement unlocked. The first door slammed in my face in the fledgling amateur investigator career. Nicole, take Addie's bag. She came a long way to bring Purry Pants back to me. The least we can do is offer her some tea and maybe some cake. I made a blueberry cake last night. Oh, I can't. That sounds wonderful. I shrugged my purse off my shoulder and handed it to a scowling Nicole. She looked eager for me to hit the road, but I hadn't had anything since breakfast, and my stomach was rumbling. Plus, I wanted to talk to Margaret alone. Would you show me around the gallery? I asked when Nicole disappeared into a back room. I'd love to. We were almost done setting up the new exhibit for next weekend's party, but I may cancel it. Because of the theft? She nodded. No, that would be a shame. The thief had already taken enough from this woman. Margaret gave Persephone a kiss on the head, then set her down. I'm not sure I want to share Bellamy's work with the world anymore. If he'd lived to see this interest in his art, he would have hated it. His work was in response to the culture he wanted to get away from. He probably would have stolen his own painting. I laughed. I would have liked Bellamy a lot. Every day with him took my breath away. I never knew what to expect. Her eyes shone with emotion. My life isn't the same without him. I'm really glad I was able to bring Persephone back to you. That must make things a little easier. It does. She's good company. Margaret furrowed her brow. How did you know to bring her here if her tag was missing? I stepped closer and waited for the telltale sounds of cabinets being opened to make sure Nicole was distracted. Has your cat ever talk to you? Margaret pursed her lips, blinking. She's quite a vocal cat, especially around mealtime. I shook my head. I mean, actually spoken? My heart pounded. Margaret seemed to have had an avant-garde past, but this was pretty far-fetched. I didn't believe my ears at first either. But how else would I know she's your cat? She was in the press. I said that because I was afraid to tell you that I can talk to your cat. Another glance at the hallway to make sure the coast was still clear. She followed the thieves. She knows who took your painting. There must be some explanation. Can I prove it to you? Maybe she can tell me which windows she likes to nap in. The one near the door, Persephone said. It's got enough room to get comfy. I pointed to it, and Margaret's lips parted. The clinking of heels signaled Nicole was back, with a cup of tea in each hand. The younger woman looked like she was much more accustomed to people waiting on her than the other way around. Maybe we should sit, Margaret suggested, and turned to Nicole. Addie might know who took the painting. Nicole narrowed her eyes at me. I wouldn't go that far. I followed them into a room that had the kitchen essentials, but also a massive table in the middle, and a few sculptures positioned on it like someone was figuring out how to display them. Were we considering offering the reward money if that's what you're after? Nicole said as she took her seat. Selling the Bernays was supposed to fund my aunt's retirement. She can't afford to give money away if she doesn't sell that painting. Certainly understandable. Something about Nicole was rubbing me the wrong way. She reminded me of someone who would have turned up their nose at me at a cocktail party at the brokerage firm I used to work at. Persephone curled around my legs. 2 people took the painting, she said. She'd told me that at the shelter, too. Which supported the Sully getting paid off theory. I wondered if he was the guy I almost knocked over on the sidewalk. He did know Persephone, and according to her, he smelled the same. Was there anyone especially interested in the exhibit? I asked. Maybe someone who hasn't been around much since the theft? We've already spoken to the police, Nicole reminded me, frowning from behind her teacup. Perhaps you should contact them if you have information that could lead to an arrest. Margaret shook her head, like her niece embarrassed her. A lot of people are excited about the exhibit since Bellamy's other work has gained attention. I've had these paintings in my house since I moved back to the States, and I decided to make them available with some encouragement. From the art teacher, Nicole rolled her eyes. He spends an awful lot of time in a tiny gallery. Margaret's face lit up. Henry's fascinating. He's traveled to some of the same places that Bellamy and I did. Even studied with Bellamy's protege. We have a lot in common. I enjoy his company. But selling a Bernays on the black market would pad his teacher's salary. Nicole waved off a piece of cake when Margaret offered. You should have never given him the code to the gallery. Oh. I hoped Henry had an alibi for the night, and that he wasn't working with Sully. Poor Sully. I had already totally framed him. Margaret shrugged. He likes to work here. It's impossible to sculpt in a tiny apartment. I did not turn down Margaret's offer of cake. Henry's very talented, she said, and motioned to the sculptures in progress on the table. This is his work. It didn't look like much now. White plaster, maybe, with some carvings. I nodded because I had no idea what to say. He may also be very opportunistic, Nicole said. Do you have any proof he really studied with Bellamy's people? Like I said, my aunt is too trusting, too bohemian. Too bad more people aren't like that. I popped a piece of blueberry cake into my mouth as Nicole glared at me. Does anyone else have the code? Nicole does, Persephone said. She was meeting a man here. He stunk. No, Margaret said. Just Henry. Interesting that Persephone thought to include Nicole, but Margaret didn't. Maybe because she was family? She felt it went without saying. But even though I lived above my sister's garage, she didn't give me a key to her house. Is there anyone interested in this house? It seems to be an anomaly, a single-family house in the middle of so many high-rises. I turned to Nicole. You said you were in real estate, correct? The house has been in the family for generations, Margaret said. But I have had some offers to sell. Nicole thinks I'm crazy to hold on to it. They're willing to pay well above market value, and market value is pretty impressive. The offer might not last forever. Nicole gave me a knowing smile. It made me shudder. You could have a nice gallery down the Cape, or maybe in Florida. With the old people, Margaret groaned. The minute I hand over the deed, they'll tear the place down and put a high-rise in its place. As soon as I'm gone, I'm sure the family will sell. But there's history here. I'd like to hold on to the legacy a little while longer. Nicole put her hand over Margaret's. I'd love to stay and chat more, but I have dinner reservations. Addie, thank you so much for bringing my aunt's cat back. It was a very kind thing to do. She rose from the table and put her coat over her arm before walking out the back door. I don't like her, Persephone said as she jumped into my lap. She underestimates Margaret. Margaret sighed when the door closed. She always says I work too hard, wants me to relax. She laughed sharply. I'm 70, I'm not dead. Having the gallery in the city is my connection to the art community. When does the exhibit open? If you do it. We plan to have the opening party next Saturday night. I'm not ready to retire, but I wonder if Nicole is right. If it is time for me to sell this house. I miss France and my community there. With worry furrowing her brow, she did look older. Unsure. There was no doubt the theft had her rattled. Even if you do decide to sell, I think you should still have the party. Think of it as a way to celebrate Bellamy. If you sell any of his work, and it sounds like you will, you can spend it on your terms. True. I'd love to come, if that's possible. Maybe I could work with Persephone and she could scent the person who took the painting. The perp might show up as part of their cover, or they could be scoping out their next target. Margaret gasped. It would break my heart if more of Bellamy's work was stolen. It won't be. Now I was making promises I couldn't keep. We might get information the police would overlook and help them with the investigation. It's worth a try. Her face brightened, and she reached over and patted Persephone's head. Are you able to talk to other animals? No. Can't lie, I questioned my sanity when it happened. But everything she told me led me to you. Your cat might be able to help you get your painting back.